Safety in the mining industry is paramount. It is the first and last thing we think about every single day to ensure that we have zero harm. And without much further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel. I'll start with Dushen Naidoo on the end, who is our head of safety. Next to him is Japie Fullard, who is chair of our CEO Zero Harm Forum, which is possibly one of the most important groupings within the Minerals Council if we consider the health and safety aspect. And next to Japie is Dr. Thuthula Balfour, who's head of health. If I may hand over to Japie.
Thank you, Alan. Good morning, all. So what I'm going to do this morning, I'm just going to give a brief overview of 2024 and the statistics. You would have known that our acting president of the Minerals Council also gave feedback in terms of lagging indicators. That means after the facts, statistical wise. So you would all know that last year we had 42 fatalities. I think it's very important to note that we all understand as CEOs that 42 is 42 too many. I mean, we can all look at previous statistics that we were 49 and we talk about we want to be below 50 and now we're 42. But at the end of the day, it's critical that everybody must understand that it must be zero. I mean, 42 colleagues have lost their lives ultimately. So how did we get there? I mean, if I have a look at last year, all the interventions that we had, I know that Dr. Balfour will also talk about that, but you would know that through the Mine Health and Safety Council last year, we also got our new milestones. It was developed through a tripartite participation. And what's really important is that the milestones this time around feels much more tangible. It's achievable, it's tangible, and again, we are focusing as the industry to strive towards zero harm. Another very important thing that happened last year is we reshaped or recalibrated our Kumbula Akaya intervention. And that's actually what they refer to as CEO-ship. It's the responsibility of all the mining houses to make sure that we as CEOs or executives steps up and really make a difference in terms of the drive towards zero harm. I think it's also important to note, and I know Dushendra will also talk about that, but if you have a look at all our KPIs, our lagging indicators, statistical wise, you'll see that also on the injuries, we also reduced quite favorably. We are now below 2,000. It's quite a big drop as well. And I think that's important to note, the more your injuries, the more you focus on stopping the injuries, the fatalities will also come down. I think for me, that's more on the leading indicator side. And I think that's where the focus should be. It shouldn't be on, fatalities and what you do after, events. It is what we do before to make sure that the more you focus on the before, the better you are going to get on the lagging side. So I think that's a very important point. And then we also, we then, just to come back to Kumbula Akaya Version 2, so last year also we had another workshop where we were quite a large group of CEOs and also executives, and we just paused and looked at what did we achieve and what can we do more to make sure that we strive towards zero harm. And we will see this year that we will bring out Kumbula Akaya Version 2, where there are clear KPIs in terms of what we as mining houses need to do. So for me, that's really a very important. So last year a couple of really important things happened. if I just think about coming back again to the 42, everybody talks about, statistics, and it's the right thing to do because it shows you what you are doing either well or not well. So, but I'm very reluctant to focus on that because it becomes just a figure. It becomes a 42, and it's people's lives. And for me, that is really where the CEO-ship comes in. And I can tell you that not a single CEO that I've dealt with over the last couple of years being the chair, there's not a single CEO that do not believe in zero harm. And I can tell you that. And if I have a look at all the interventions that we also take as a company is we've got all these interventions in terms of fall of ground. You would know that 2 years ago or so, we came down to a figure of 6 fall of ground fatalities. It's the lowest ever. But before that, it's all the hard work that we're doing every single day that actually comes to those type of results. We've got so many interventions in terms of MOSH. You'll also hear a bit later about that, what we are doing in that space. So I could just say that for me, it's actually a privilege to be part of this forum, part of this industry, to make sure that we do make a difference. I think that's it from my side, Alan. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Japie. I really appreciate that. And Japie, if you wouldn't mind just talking about that CEO hour of learning that we have once a month as one of the most powerful tools we have.
Yes, I mean, obviously, I think for me, when we started with this hour of learning, and I can tell you on Monday, while we were sitting here and actually having these sessions, we again had the hour of learning. And every first day of the month, all the CEOs dial in, and then we've got either a presentation or a discussion, and at these sessions, that's where we really share the learnings of previous incidents. And what's great for me to see, Alan, is it's not about talking about fatalities anymore. It's about even talking about incidents and packing the incidents. And for me, that's really showing that how open and brutally honest we are as the industry. And I can tell you, every time, every first of the month, if I have a look at the platform and I see the amount of CEOs on the call, that for me is the real indication that these people are serious. It is not just wasting another hour. So for me, it's really something that we started the previous year already, and I can just say it's really working fantastic.
In the mining sector, and if I look at just the past 15 years, we've had total reductions which are upward of about 78%. And if we look at the 3 key diseases, these are TB, noise-induced hearing loss, and silicosis. And for TB and silicosis, we've had reductions of more than 80% in those diseases over that time. And I just need to point out that for noise-induced hearing loss, however, the decline has been about 55%, which is a cause for concern, and actually shows that there is structural issues around reducing noise-induced hearing loss, which for us now is, quite a key focus area, because initially most of our diseases really were accounted for by TB. And we have made so much progress on the TB that the noise-induced hearing loss cases are about the same as the cases of TB. And with further declines in TB, it means, noise-induced hearing loss will probably be the key focus area. And just touching on the women in terms of health and safety, we have about, according to the DMRE, about 16%, 17% of the population now of employees is women. But when it comes to diseases and injuries, we are still sitting with about 5% and less being accounted for by women. And I think it's just a reflection of how maybe we do not yet have as many women in the really high impact, or let me say the more risky jobs. And but we are tracking women. We have, as an industry, decided that there are women in the industry, and we need to keep tracking what exactly, are the major risks that they have, so that we address those proactively. So the fact that currently they are not accounting for a proportionate number in terms of injuries and disease doesn't mean we should relax. Touching on how we actually, I believe, and we believe we made a lot of progress. There's the milestones that Japie mentioned that we set for ourselves as an industry. We do that. We have 10-year milestones. So last year, for instance, we were reviewing the 2014 milestones, and we met some, we did not meet others. But the key thing was, over all of those milestones, there were major improvements. And we believe that milestones are the way to go, which is why we have set new milestones or targets for 2034, because we find that they are very useful in you as a company, for instance, tangibly measuring if you are making progress. So I'll just mention the ones that we did make quite a lot of progress on. And the one we are quite happy about is silica dust. Now, silica dust is mainly in the gold sector and also a bit in coal. And silica dust does predispose people to having TB, which is why in South Africa we've got TB as an occupational disease in the mining industry. And it's because of the dust, and in particular because of the silica dust. And so we had a target for silica dust, which we almost met. In fact, when the target was set in 2014, we did not think it would really be possible to meet the target. And truly, the target was 5%, and we were 5 point whatever, it was less than 6. And we were coming down from levels of about 9% and higher. And so that was a major achievement, because as a leading indicator, it means that our employees now are far more protected, against silica dust, and therefore further in the future, they will not develop occupational lung diseases as they used to. You are all aware, I'm sure, of the silicosis cases and the litigation on silicosis. So I think that's a major achievement, because it means now that we have seriously reduced, the levels of dust. The other area we made great progress on is TB, where again the target was set, and the target which was set was for 2024, but we actually achieved that in 2017. So, and in fact, the advances in TB are quite impressive, in that we used to be seen as the Minister Mtswaledi used to say around 2009, we were the head of the snake, when it comes to TB in the region, the mining industry that is, and it's spreading the TB in the region. And so, right from then, and even before then, we put in a lot of effort on reducing TB, and that has paid huge dividends. We see now TB rates of about 220 cases of TB per 100,000, which is about half the national rate for South Africa. I have, however, to say that we still have a challenge in the gold sector, which currently is trying to reduce their rates to below the South African average. So overall, our focus has been on, how do we eliminate, so the hygiene indicators, how do we eliminate exposures, so that it means, in a way, you are closing the tap and you do not see diseases going forward. The programs we have used, Japie has mentioned the MOSH. We, as the Minerals Council, have the MOSH Learning Hub, which has 4 pillars: 2 catering for safety-related leading practices, and the other 2 for dust and noise, which are the health-related ones. And they their role is just to identify and to promote leading practices among companies so that people learn from each other and can, make more progress on reducing dust and noise. And that has been very successful. We also have our Masoise program, health program, which is a multi-stakeholder program led by Minerals Council. It started off as TB and HIV, but now is more wellness. It covers mental health, non-communicable diseases. It's about screening. So through screening, you then prevent people, getting to manifest the disease. We also have arising from the fact that we've got this major challenge in TB in the gold sector. We've got a TB in gold working group, which is just focused on trying to assist the gold sector in improving, reducing TB. And lastly, I'd like to mention what I talked about, which was women. We did a study last year on, what is the status of health for women, and ultimately the key takeaway was we need to do far more, focus on, the needs of women, and we actually developed a guideline on doing a health needs assessment for women. And so going forward, as I said, we want to make sure that as women enter the industry, we are ready to ensure that their health needs are attended to. I will stop there, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Japie's points on the statistics on hand, 42 loss of lives to date. That in itself is indicative of the efforts that the industry has made to get to zero harm. We still have a long way to go, but I think this is certainly a sign of continuous improvement and a measure of the initiatives that we've got in place. Our advocacy efforts, our tripartism, our special projects are all making a dent in the industry in terms of safety and in terms of improving the situation at hand. So essentially, from where we were in 2003, it's over an 80% reduction in terms of loss of lives, 17% reduction, 16% reduction in terms of injuries to date. So there certainly is a growing force towards ensuring that we are increasing or improving the safety of our employees. We have instituted a lot on the data side in terms of a comprehensive analysis of the last 10 years, looking at the milestones, looking at an in-depth study on what were the contributing factors to incidents. And there were a lot of core learnings and outcomes that came out of that study. So we've documented that, and the whole pathway now is towards developing Kumulakaya version 2, as Japie has alluded to. Kumulakaya version 2, we set the mark for an in-depth discussion on the 21st of November by bringing all the CEOs of our member companies into the same room. And if you were there, you would have felt the passion, commitment to safety that came from our leaders. Everyone was focused on not just the key elements of safety. Safety is very multifaceted. There's a lot of things that we have learned over the years, and we've got those learns instilled in many of our operations. However, it's all about sustainability and getting the recipes correct to ensuring that we have proactive measures in place to reduce fatalities and injuries and get to zero harm. So that was a very, very robust conversation, and that's actually put together documentation and detailed data that we've consolidated to formulate Kumulakaya version 2. So that's in process, and we're looking at releasing that this year. The drafting is being done as we speak, and the details will be shared with the industry during the mid to the last quarter of the year. Essentially also strong initiatives on our side that we're focusing on is, of course, the main agencies that contribute to fatalities and injuries being fall of ground and trackless mobile machinery. On the fall of ground side, we've got the 4GAP program, which is the fall of ground action plan, which consists of 5 pillars. And each of these pillars talk to different things. So there's adoption of leading practices, as Japie has mentioned, that our MOSH team are very, very proactive on, looking at different elements from the technical to behavioral aspects and documenting those and promoting it for widespread adoption. A core part of the fall of ground action plan in terms of leading practices has been the permanent netting leading practice, which over 60% have adopted in the industry. Now that's just the data we've got from member mines, from some of the member mines, but there's a lot of mines that are also doing things on their own in terms of these leading practices. So it may not be formally registered as a leading practice on their operations. So it would be higher than that, the adoption. And then there's of course the workplace illumination leading practice, which also contributes to reducing slips and falls and just improving the workforce visibility or the workplace visibility as well in some areas, so that you have more lighted or lit areas to prevent incidents. Because we've seen that lighting can definitely cause a lot of problems underground. And then other aspects of fall of ground action plan have been some of the work we've done on exoskeletons, on technology. This has been really encouraging. We're looking at the barring process. This is where you use, workers use a long bar to knock onto the hanging wall to reduce loose rock. And the idea was to look at exoskeletons to eliminate, to reduce the amount of effort that's required to do the barring exercise, but also to place the worker at further distances, so you have longer barring rods that can be lifted by these systems. Exoskeletons, we've looked at over 8 systems, over 8 different technologies, and there's some tweaking and anthropological aspects that are being looked into with the University of Johannesburg and other entities. So those have been tested underground, and there's further work that we're looking into for that as well. There's also the seismic monitoring aspect that we've done a lot of work on. We're looking at real-time monitoring in terms of LiDAR and photogrammetry. So there's a lot of technical experts involved in that process. And we've also got the fall of ground day of learning that's coming up in March, where we're looking at sharing a lot of those learnings that we've accumulated over the years. And there's a key thing also for this year that we want to release on the fall of ground action plan, and that's in terms of the last pillar of the plan, which talks to an enabling environment to address fall of ground, contributing as an agency to fatalities and injuries. And that is an app that has been developed, an application that has been developed by the Minerals Council and through the Rock Engineering Technical Committee. This app talks to all of the different factors that are required to ensure that the environment is suitable to prevent these fall of grounds. So fall of grounds can be gravity induced, or they can be induced due to energy release or rock burst scenarios. So in-depth studies being followed in that area. And I think we're seeing a lot of the outcomes also being implemented on certain operations. Lots of support from the industry. Without that support, we would not have been able to get as far as we did. And I think we're making tangible progress in that regard. So fall of ground is being addressed in that way. And it also cuts across the different spaces in terms of industry, from educational institutions to research organizations, and also to some extent the tripartite structures as well. And then on the transport and machinery side, we're continuing with the industry alignment on the TMM regulations. That's a special project that involved a huge investment from our member companies to address some of the misconceptions associated with the TMM regulations. We've, as a Minerals Council, especially the big input from the MOSH Transport and Machinery team, have produced guidance documentation that's world leading for the industry. because of our regulatory environment. So this guidance documentation has been looked at by other countries and has been valued and appreciated in terms of the technical depth that the guidance work goes through. So that's also on our MOSH website and can be shared as required. It's being adopted. There's still some work that's ongoing in that respect. A lot of work in terms of electromagnetic interference. So what happens is you've got pulses and electronic devices that produce magnetic fields, and these interfere with these technologies. So testing is being done underground and on surface for that matter to see how we can counteract those electromagnetic interferences. We're also looking at more collaborative efforts with the regulator, with the department, to ensure that there's good and close contact in terms of the regulatory aspects on operations, and to ensure that the TMM regulations are aligned to all the stakeholders and there's a good understanding across the board. So there's a lot being done in that space. And then, of course, on the general side of things, in terms of incidents, we've also analyzed those areas in terms of slips and falls, in terms of falling into voids and ore passes, and falling from heights. We've also looked at some of the contributing factors in that regard. So it's an ongoing effort. We're really looking forward to the version 2 of Kumbalakaya. We've got a whole media and communication pathway for how that strategy is to unfold. And really our emphasis is on ensuring that proactive steps are adopted and implemented to make the step change that we want to see in the industry. Thank you. I think I'll stop at that.